1987, Kiev, USSR. In one of the schools, 13 people started feeling very sick. No one knows what is happening while people hospitalized one after another, and soon they start dying. The whole country is shocked. Police, experts, and prosecution can't find explanation. And behind all of this, a woman that is greedy and evil beyond comprehension. In this video, I will tell you about the case of Tamara Ivanutina. Tamara was born in 1941 in Kiev in a big family with 5 brothers and sisters. Since early childhood, her parents Anton and Maria were telling their kids that they needed to get rich and successful. And Tamara took those words very seriously. Family lived in communal apartment. This was type of housing in USSR where 2 or more families lived in one flat, in different rooms but with common kitchen, toilet, and so on. Obviously, this led to constant arguments and sometimes even fights. When she got older, Tamara decided to get married. Tamara was choosing between 2 boyfriends she had, and she obviously chose one that had his own apartment, despite the fact that he was older and less good looking. But she needed his apartment, not a husband himself, so she decided to get rid of her husband, Nikolai. Right when they started living together, she started adding chemical that contains thallium into his food. At the time, thallium wasn't banned in USSR. Her family had poison at home to kill rats. Tamara's husband, who was working as a truck driver, got very sick soon. He was feeling very weak, his legs were sore and numb, and his hair started falling out. All of these are thallium poisoning symptoms. It also has an accumulating effect, and as the time passes, person is feeling worse and worse, and eventually dies. Nikolai was working till the end, and at some point, while on the job, he realized that he doesn't feel his legs. Nikolai stopped and went to swim in the river, and when he was drying his hair, he realized that his towel is covered with them. His partner drove him home, and he soon went to a hospital. In a few days, Nikolai died, and doctors assumed that he just had a heart attack, and they didn't take his hair loss into consideration. And what is more shocking, the whole Tamara's family really loved using poison to solve their problems. Tamara learned about thallium and its effects from her parents. They started using it on rats, but at some point they switched to poisoning people. Her parents Anton and Maria once made poisoned pie and gave them to their neighbor because they were annoyed by the loud sound of his TV in the evenings. Also, Tamara's sister Nina, when she found out what her sister did to her husband, decided to get married too and kill her husband to get his apartment. But luckily, at the last second, her boyfriend refused to marry her. Nina was furious, and when she was leaving, she added poison to her ex-boyfriend's borscht. He survived, but poisoning was so serious that he became sexually impotent. Nina was surprised of this effect and told Tamara about it. Soon, Nina introduced Tamara to another man. It was Oleg Ivanutin. He didn't have his own apartment, but his parents owned a farm. In USSR, people like this were considered extremely wealthy. Oleg recently got divorced and moved to live with Tamara. And of course, soon he started balding and his legs were becoming numb. Tamara acted very caring and was taking Oleg to different doctors, some of who even considered his illness fake. Unlike Oleg, his parents didn't really like Tamara that much. Tamara knew that they recently bought an apartment in Kiev, and she decided that she needs to act. Once Oleg and Tamara came to visit his parents to help them with their chores. Tamara cooked a meal, and that same evening Oleg's father felt very sick. His tongue and legs went numb. Doctors came and they thought that it's just his arthritis. On the next day, Tamara made a soup and fed it to Oleg's father. He died that same evening. On his funeral, Oleg's mother felt very sick too. Oleg asked Tamara to bring some water. After drinking it, Oleg's mother felt much worse and she vomited. She understood what is happening and screamed that she was poisoned. Some of the witnesses even told that they saw Tamara adding something in that water cup. Everyone started screaming and demanding to take that water cup to police, and Tamara took it from Oleg's mother and threw it on the ground. Oleg, who was still oblivious about his wife, protected her from guests of the funeral. That same evening, his mother died. Police, after questioning, decided not to charge Tamara with anything and considered these deaths naturally caused. Tamara and Oleg happily moved to his parents' apartment, and now she needed to get rid of him, so she would take this apartment for herself. To look less suspicious, she started talking to neighbors, telling about horrible genetic diseases Oleg and his parents had. So when Oleg will die, everyone will think that this was the reason. At the same time, she decided to find a job on the side. As she was younger, Tamara was arrested for currency speculation and even was sentenced to jail for it. In Soviet Union, if a person was jailed, even for a short period of time, finding a job was becoming much harder for them, especially if this job somehow was connected to working with kids. So in 1986, while using fake labor documents, Tamara went to work in a school as a dishwasher. She now had her own farm and she needed to feed chickens and pigs, and this was the biggest expense in her business. At first, she was buying leftovers from school cafeteria, but when she started working there, she was able to just take them for free. Her colleagues considered Tamara as a good worker, but a horrible person. She was very rude, always getting into arguments, and she was also taking all of the leftovers, despite the fact that she really wasn't allowed to. Many teachers weren't just letting her do this. School employee Ekaterina Sherban and kitchen supervisor Natalia Kukarenko. They noticed that Ivanutina is taking all of the leftovers home with her and warned that she needs to stop. Natalia was also telling the principal that they needed to fire Tamara, but this job was so underpaid that it was extremely hard to find someone to replace her. Soon Tamara decided to get rid of colleagues that were impeding her business. And in autumn of 1986, Ekaterina Sherban suddenly died as everyone thought of natural causes. On 8th of March 1987, Natalia Kukarenko felt that all of her limbs went numb. She was taken to a hospital, but she was getting only worse and worse, and soon she died too. But nobody really found these two deaths suspicious. 3 weeks later, March 27, 1987, the real disaster happened. 3 sixth graders and 11 school employees felt very sick and have gotten into a hospital. All of them experienced fever, nausea, bone pain, and a hair loss. But doctors considered that it can just be a simple flu, so they started treating them accordingly. This mistake of doctors was fatal. 2 kids and 2 school employees died soon after being hospitalized. 9 more people remained in emergency care. Families of the victims were helplessly watching as their loved ones were suffering. 13-year-old Vasya Yurchenko and Masha Sidarchuk were 2 sixth graders who died in a few days after the incident. After seeing that nobody is getting better, doctors gathered a council including virologists and epidemiologists, and they came to a conclusion that it might be some unusual type of flu. One of the doctors objected that at the end of March, flu epidemic is not really possible, and most symptoms didn't really match flu, but no one listened to him. At the same time, prosecutor's office started the investigation. They checked school building for radiation, no results. And they started questioning all of the survivors. Investigators found out that all of them ate later than most people that day, and they ate soup and chicken liver. All of the people who came to eat earlier were fine. So detectives considered possible that meat was rancid or some kids maybe added something into food as a prank. All of the troubled kids were interrogated. Then officers wanted to question kitchen workers, and they found out that the kitchen worker Natalia Kukarenko recently died of disease with similar symptoms. Soon her body was exhumed and sent to expertise, which showed that there are huge doses of thallium in her remains, which likely caused death. Tamara Ivanutina was also questioned. Detectives noticed that she's very aggressive and constantly tries to interfere when they try to inspect the kitchen. At first they thought that she's afraid they will steal something. They also found out about her previous jail sentence and mysterious deaths that surrounded her, and about her husband who was in very poor condition, bedridden and with no hair. The fact that investigators paid so much attention to Tamara saved Oleg. They decided to conduct a search in Tamara's apartment. At first it gave no results, and when they almost lost hope, one of the experts noticed a small bedside table. Ivanutina became very nervous and said that there is just a sewing machine inside. Expert, while searching, also found a little bottle for oil, but it felt too heavy. And when the liquid in that bottle was sent to expertise, it turned out that inside of that bottle was a poison made out of thallium. Soon, Oleg's parents were exhumed too, and traces of thallium were found in their bodies. Ivanutina, when she realized that detectives now have all of the proof, started talking. She was gladly describing how she was poisoning her victims. It turned out that thallium in soup and chicken liver was added to punish kitchen manager. After death of Kukarenka, he decided to put a lock on the pantry door and key he was carrying in his pocket. Ivanutina was very mad that she couldn't steal from that pantry anymore. So she added poison into an orange and took it to the manager. After he refused to eat it, she decided to add poison into food that will be cooked later that day, as she knew that the manager will be eating later because of the meeting he had. Some kids that same day went to eat later too because they helped moving chairs. So Ivanutina was just watching while kids and teachers were eating poisoned meal. Soon detectives found out how Ivanutina was getting thallium. Worker of local geological expedition was giving thallium to Tamara and her family many times when they told her that they needed to poison some rats. Detectives also found out that Tamara's parents poisoned their neighbor. And they also did the same thing to a distant relative who made a remark about their toilet being too dirty. And also Nina, Tamara's sister, poisoned her 69-year-old husband on the next day after they married, and this way she got his apartment. Tamara's family poisoned 40 people in total, and 13 of them died. And Tamara did 20 poisonings, and 9 of them led to deaths. Her father got 10-year sentence, and mother 13 years in prison. Tamara's sister Nina got 15 years in prison. After it, she was released, and nobody knows what happened to her after this. In 1987, Tamara Ivanutina was sentenced to execution by shooting. When she was given a chance in her last words to plead guilty and ask the relatives of her victims for forgiveness, she refused and just said, "I won't do this. I was raised differently." Tamara Ivanutina was the last woman that was executed in the history of USSR. Execution was done by a pistol shot made in the back of her head in one of the prisons in Kiev. Thank you for watching. Tell me what do you think about this case, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to channel. Bye.